Greetings, YouTubers. It's your buddy Chopping On coming at you with a Thursday edition of NHL Chop Talk, brought to you by the one, the only DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy sports, MMA to PGA. We've got you covered. Coaches, tools, content, everything that you see, that you hear me talking about, run down into the comments section, click the link, become a VIP today. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Trigger that 10% off discount and get in here today. Start winning. If you look here through scrolling through the screen, is just really recent winners over the past, say, 2 or 3 weeks or so, outside of a couple of those that I pulled. And you're seeing a lot of 5 and 6 figure winners. We've had, what, $200,000 winners, a $300,000 winner. We've had several $10,000 and $15,000 winners lately. People inside the Army are responding to the coaching as always. They're getting better. They are winning. So say what you want to say about whether or not the industry works or the game is long-term winnable or not. I've got proof. I've got plenty of people that are constantly winning. We can teach you to do the same thing, but you can't do it unless you're a member. So you got to come inside, and while you're down there, click the link and the subscribe button and keep this content rolling out to you. Let's go ahead and let's get rid of that today. Let's show you what I want to show you NHL wise. I want to walk through something that I showed before I dive into the research station here today and go searching in search of buyers and sellers, if you will. The first thing that I wanted to do, I guess, is run through what we're looking for when it comes to the offenses and who's in a good spot and who's not when it comes to NHL. One of the ways that I do this, I've been talking a little bit about baselines, last 10 numbers, last 5 game numbers. When one crosses in the positive, it's a buy signal. When one crosses in the negative, it's a sell signal. Things along those lines. We can do the exact same thing with team numbers and see which offenses are running hot and which offenses are running cold. Which ones are trending in the right direction. This graphic right here today has been assembled from NHL.com, team stats, last 30 days, and then goals for and goals against, and then last 10 days, goals for and goals against. And if we use the last 30 days as an overall baseline, you can make one yourself, bigger, smaller, whatever, and use the other smaller, shorter sample size as a hot-cold indicator. We can check, is it crossing on the up or is it crossing on the down? Is this team set to potentially heat up or potentially cool off? That's what we can start tracking, and that's what can start indicating to us good matchups and bad. And I put red dots by some of the bad matchups, green dots by some of the good matchups. And the reason on the left side is the L30s, on the right side is the L10s. So if you need to, pause this, write it down, come back, listen to the explanation, and start watching how I do this. This is just one way. I'm not going to pretend to be the, NHL's, Einstein or anything like that. That's not what I am. I'm just a guy that loves kind of poking around, playing around with some of these numbers, has a fairly logical or, logic-oriented brain that can deduce a little bit of pattern, a little bit of numbers, and show you maybe where you should focus tonight when it comes right down to it. The reason that let's start with the good stuff, the green stuff. Obviously, on the L30 side here, Colorado's in a good spot. 8th ranked offense going up against 6th softest defense in that 30-game span. That's a good sign. Green, green. It's a good sign. When you're looking more like green here, red here, or orange here, you can kind of make up your mind. Probably a little bit more neutral. We don't have quite a soft enough defense. Not that it's a bad thing. Maybe they would be relegated more towards GPP type plays on your list if you really, really saw other indicators that you liked. And you'll see some of that in here too. Mediocre offense, but facing a very, very soft defense is a positive bump, green. Green on green should be a double green dot right there, actually. Second rated offense over 30 days going up against 5th softest defense should be a double green. In case you're wondering, I should explain this to you too. I don't have enough space to show this in screenshots, so I underlined the home team and went white, gray. This is the matchup: Columbus, Philly, New York, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Toronto. The underlined team in gray is the home team. The team on top of them is the visiting matchup, okay? So with the top team, you're going diagonally down. With the bottom team, you're going diagonally up. And that's what you're looking for, okay? Hopefully that at least helped explain a little bit of that to you. When we scroll down a little bit further, we've got long-term signals on some of these teams. Tampa Bay going up against a little bit tougher defense. Maybe not the buy signal. Now they are the #1 offense over the last 30 days, but maybe not the strong buy that you might want for a cash game scenario, given that you've got some others here. Calgary, pretty neutral. Light green, not bad. I'm sorry. Yeah, light green, not bad. Washington going into the orange, not great. Not necessarily a strong negative, though. Nashville, mediocre, heading down into large green. Good sign. Obviously, Vancouver, not great, going into a tougher defense, not good. See how this is working? You get the double greens when you've got really dark green going up against really dark green. The other one we should have probably used was Ottawa. That one was dark green and dark green. Now we go to the little bit of the short-term type stuff, the L10s. The first green dot or the first dot is kind of it's a good matchup like we just showed you on the left side there. You know, let's see if we can find one. Toronto, top 10 offense, bottom 5 defense, or fourth softest in the league. That's a good green dot and a green dot more or less, right? Makes sense. So they get the first green dot. I'll tell you where the second one came from here in a minute. But number one offense going up against mediocre, middling defense. Still not a bad buy signal. And I'll show you why, again with the other. Second going into 11th, pretty good. 13th going into 12th, you might not see, you'll see this in the double green explanation here in a minute. 8th going into 1st, that's a pretty darn good signal. 19th going into 2nd, it's okay. When we look at the trends, now you can find the red dots yourself, but when we look at the trends, I'll explain that when I get to one of the other games. When we look at the trends on Toronto, say 4th rated offense, now 10th. So they're softening up a little bit. Okay, they're not as juggernauty as they were over the past few weeks. The older numbers are stronger than the newer numbers in terms of goals for. However, look at the opposing defense. Was 24th, was pretty tough. Now all of a sudden super soft. That defense went the wrong direction in a hurry. So we've got a pretty solid, consistently solid offense now going up against a defense that could be on the schneid. Therefore, I'm giving them a double green dot. I really would like to focus on that. I'd like to capitalize on that downward trend of that Detroit defense. And I'd like to capitalize on Toronto being a solid offense, running into that downward trending defense. It's a strong signal for me. When I look down here, Tampa Bay, top offense over the last 10 days and over the last 30 days, going up against a Boston defense that was pretty strong is now pretty middling. So they're trending in the wrong direction too. You've got the league's best offense coming at you. Also happens to be running hot, and your defense is trending in the wrong direction. Hello, Tampa Bay Lightning skaters. They're in a very, very good spot tonight. Again, what could go wrong? Well, the goalie could stand on his head and shut them out. But, I mean, if I ran this slate 100 times, Tampa's in a good spot. A very, very good spot to be successful. I just have to dig in and find who. Calgary, trending in the right direction. 9th most in goals, now 2nd most in goals. That's quite the bump. 13th, staying in the middle for Minnesota. So the way I see this is a very, very good spot for Calgary tonight. That offense is really getting hot. And they're going up against somebody that's not necessarily stopping anybody. Why is Arizona double dotted? Well, Arizona's offense is trending in the right direction all of a sudden, from 27th to 13th. Washington's defense is trending in the wrong direction, from okay to kind of soft. So I've got an offense that's heating up, going up against a defense that's cooling off or that is getting weaker. That's a great signal in their direction, even if it's just middling numbers. This one's going to slide under the radar. I catch criticism because I eat chalk, and I catch criticism because I only show you the best plays of the best plays. Well, honestly, get bent. Because that's how you win in this game. You play the stable, you don't need to get ultra creative. You just need to know when to find creative or when it shows its head and how to spot it. Okay, that's what I teach my VIPs. So you don't need to come in here and explain to me that I'm a chalky guy. I know that already. I'm teaching the fundamentals for people who want to get better. The fact that you don't see that and don't pick up on that tells me you need my help. Because you're already kind of blind to the fact that you think that every single hot take in the world, every single tip in the world needs to be some groundbreaking news. No, wrong End of story. That's for shock jocks on ESPN and television. That's not what wins over the long haul. So I will repeat to you, if you are expecting that, get bent. Dip into your pockets just a smidge and get ready to redeposit because you're going to be that 80% long-term loser for life. If you want to shore that leak in your game up and you want to get better, start embracing the chalk because it's the best play for a reason. It's the most common play for a reason. Every once in a while, you will see opportunity like this with Arizona, where you see hidden in those numbers and hidden in what will be very low ownership tonight. An upward trending offense facing a downward trending defense, and you should jump on that. You jump on that in GPPs. It's not a strong signal, like the number one team going up against a middling, defense. It's not a cash safe type situation, but it is a very, very strong signal in a very strong GPP direction because you're going to get the low ownership with it. That makes a night. That can make your season if that pans out and plays out. So don't come in here thinking that we don't know how to coach both cash games and GPPs. We just focus on the fundamentals. Moving on. Nashville and Vancouver tonight is a double red. Why? We're sitting here on this right side looking at an offense and a defense that's the defense pretty tough. The offense isn't great. The offense in Vancouver stinks and the defense is okay. So we're looking at a game that should play to the under, judging by those numbers. You shouldn't be interested in that. Even though the 30-day numbers are over here, you might not be too completely shocked if Nashville wins the game, scores some goals, etc., but it doesn't look like a game that's going to be showing the way the teams are currently playing up in any fantasy goodness at all, really. Chicago going into Vegas is interesting as well because we've got the double green on Vegas. We don't have much in Chicago. There's not much hope. There's not much of a sign of hope. And LA Kings here trending way up, 30th, 19th. I'm going to tell you this right here was the coaching change. This is the bump. They didn't turn into some juggernaut offense, but they improved. They're now middle of the pack. They're now scoring goals, and they're going up against a team that over the last 30 days gave up the most goals, and now over the last 10 has given up the second most goals in the league. Watch out for LA. That's another GPP play. So get bent part 2. There's 2 GPP plays for you, Arizona and LA. When I see them, I'll announce them. But generally speaking, I'm going to keep you fundamentally sound. And yes, it's boring, and it's like going to your accountant or your dentist. But that's where 80% of your play should be. That's where most of my coaching goes because my job is to turn you into a profitable player, not turn you into a millionaire. We'll work on that some other day. That's roughly the scenarios. That's roughly where you're sitting tonight. If we scroll into the buyers and the sellers, the first thing we sometimes will do is go to the goalie page. Now, you can do this any way you want. You can mark down those teams, Toronto and Tampa Bay and Vegas and whoever else you liked. And you can target just those teams in here in the research station. The other thing that you can do is just look at them all through buyers and sellers. And we'll go point out a few here in a little bit, and we'll just call it a day here in 15 or 20 minutes. 62%, 62, 61, 60, 55. The 60%ers are pretty doggone strong win chances. Somebody's going to have a good night. Fleury, Rene, Hill, Anderson, all pretty expensive except for Aiden Hill here in Arizona. Did I just point out that Arizona's in a pretty good spot tonight and might be sneaky? Did I? Huh? Vegas just showed you 60% chance that Arizona beats Washington? Very interesting. What if that pans out? That's not going to be chalky. The goalie might be chalky. So if you want to stack an Ovechkin and Backstrom or something like that in a GPP and go GPP against the GPP guys that are going to be playing Aiden Hill as their goalie, go for it, man. That can backfire on them too. Ovechkin can score a hat trick in any situation. These are all easy ways to go. These are all pretty simple to see type things. But this is stuff that will fly a little bit under the radar tonight. This will be a chalky goalie because he's cheap and he's in a great spot to win. He's got high Vegas odds supporting him. I mean, I'd even use the guy for crying out loud. But if I had cash game scenario sitting on there where I had $1,000 in a double up and I needed to be incredibly safe, I would probably look at Marc-Andre Fleury. And I would take that 62% chance to the bank. And the fact that Chicago has not been scoring and and has been letting up a lot of goals, I would take that scenario right there and I would pay $10,000 for that goalie. Because that goalie's in a very, very good spot. Problem is, I don't know. Chicago shoots a little bit. I'd have to check it on NHL.com again. But when I'm going to go looking for skaters, so those are my goalies. Fleury would be my cash goalie. Aiden Hill would be my GPP goalie. The others are in play definitely. But I think your safest bet is Marc-Andre Fleury right now. If I scroll over, I could cut out some of those teams if I wanted to. I can go back and play smaller slates and just turn the slate, turn the teams blue that are on that slate. And then deal with only that player pool if I want to. And that's what I'll be doing personally later on tonight. If I scroll down here, let's look at the percentage of teams scoring again really quickly. There's your Colorado guys, a little bit of Boston. It's a Philly guy. Philly was running cold. Chicago's running cold there. Your first one on the list, first two, Marner, Kucherov, are up there. Okay, they'll be in play tonight in good spots. So far, there's not a whole lot. Gaudreau's another one, but he's probably running cold right now, or he'd have made my list from Calgary already. So I'm looking at this list, and it's not that exciting in terms of what it's telling me. When I scroll over here and look for the Fanduel top 10, or the last 10 games and the top baseline numbers, of course I'm going to see Cam Atkinson up there. Of course I'm going to see the hot guys of the last 10. Cam Atkinson's at 26. His FanDuel average, he just put up a hat trick. His FanDuel average the last 5 is still only 21.7. That's intriguing to me. He's still kind of a sell, if you want to look at it that way. You may laugh and you may say, oh my God, he's so hot. Well, he had a good game. That good game was not enough. I thought it would be definitely enough to take this last 5 and pop it up above the last 10, but it did not. And it's not even really all that close. That's very interesting to me. Kucherov's a slightly positive guy. McKinnon's running right on his baseline. Crosby's cooled off just a smidge. See this? 20? Crosby's cooled off a little bit. Ovechkin right on his baseline. Hornquist running a little bit hot. Decent value in that price too. Austin Matthews running 3 points hot almost. Rantanen cooled off a smidge, but Rantanen is so cash safe most of the time. Now I don't know about tonight's matchup because I think I showed you that it's a little bit neutral. Braden Point's cooled off quite a bit. 3 points cooled off. Johnny Gaudreau, he's hot. Interesting, he did not appear on my list today. I didn't notice him. Monahan's hot. He is on my list today. Mike Hoffman cooled off a little bit. Huberdeau, whatever. Let's scroll over this way and let's find some value plays. That might be fun. I take this here. I'm going to filter out by less than. What would you consider a value play on FanDuel? 5,500 or under? Let's go under 5,000. Do even better. If we wanted to go super punt, we'd go under 45. What the hell? Let's go under 4,500. I suspect we'll see quite a few defensemen pop into this list. But why not? Let's look around. Let's play. Let's show you the power of this tool. It's not always, A, B, C, D, E with me. Sometimes you guys can play with this tool yourself. We can scroll around and poke around and see what's going on. But we're mostly looking for who's hot and who's not. So when I sort this one out, the highest guy on the list, Blake Coleman, at 13.5 over his last 10, running cold. Look, there's our hot one right there. When I know that 13 or 12, 13 is the number I'm starting with, I'm getting down here towards the 10s. Anything over a 10 or 12 is pretty hot. So 14 out of Hannafin. Hannafin might have almost made my buyers and sellers list. Shaw cooled off a little bit. Kempney, not as hot. There's a hot one. Austin Watson still. Damn, that dude is staying hot. Josh Anderson, little duplicate. I guess his twin brother's going to be out there later today. Jesper Bratt, TJ Brody, Tyler Bertuzzi, Terry Lehkonen. These are guys that, again, are running fairly decent numbers right now. Look at some of these. 16.9 over the last 5 games. There's Anders Johnson again. 14 for Alec Martinez. There's a defender, Bodker. Marcus Johansson. 13.7, John Moore. Never heard of him. Sorry if he's your brother or your son or on your Secret Santa list. Never heard of him. Scroll down a little bit more. But these are just another way to find some of these hot names, right? And now we found some punt plays that we could write down if we wanted to and maybe factor in. I would try and correlate them with the offenses I'm targeting tonight, no matter which ones those are. So clear that filter off and go back to the top of those. You want to switch by the purely hot dudes. You run over here and you just sort the 5-game column out. Go straight descending. $26 for Huber to Kucherov. Those are your hot bats if you want to right now. Hot sticks. If I scroll over a little bit more, you want to go punting again. Let's go less than, say, well, 4,500 worked. We already saw that list, but let's sort and bring the hottest guys up to the top, see if we didn't miss anybody. Sometimes there's somebody buried way down in the salary pool that we did miss. 16.9, Johnson, Watson, Bratt, Hannafin, Martino. Are these names that we were already mentioning that we were? See, yeah, there's just a million ways to spot these guys. And when you spot them, you write them down. You go plug them into your player pool. One thing that's kind of cool for VIP guys, or if you're considering becoming a VIP guy. Let me show you this one. DS beta testing. I'll come up here. I'm going to pull this link down. I'm going to click lineup tool. And that's right. I have NHL in my DS. I have NHL in my optimizer. Army's always growing. Army's always putting resources into their product. I'm taking a peek at the whole slate right now. If I want to knock out those early games, just focus on about the 4 or 5 late games, I can run that player pool if I want. If I want, I can run 5 lineups. I can throw in about 3 or 4 unique players. I can click optimize, select 9 players. Oops, got to get off the Army projections, go base projections while we're in beta mode. Click optimize. Run down here and take a look at who it likes. It likes Eller, Jarnkrok, Ovechkin. It likes Washington tonight. The projections like this is going to be interesting, but this is a limited player pool. Actually, let's go back and let's just uncheck those guys again. Let's see if it lines up with what we saw. Oh, what are you doing? Why are you stuck, you silly little optimizer? Here we go. So I'll turn Colorado back on and turn that game back on. I must have freaked it out by clicking through there. All right, now that I've got that run, 5 unique, 3 unique. Let's see who it likes. Loves Atkinson, Nylander, Jones. It loves Columbus. See those 2 right there, Columbus guys. Toronto. Loves Toronto. It's loving Garrett Sparks still. This is one thing. We're working bugs out. You want to help us be part of the testing process, become a VIP, and get in here on the ground floor. But it's going to like Toronto. It's going to like Columbus tonight, it looks like. It likes a little bit of Montreal. We already saw where we disagree with those some. So what I might do is I might come back up through here, click off the names that I want. Wasn't impressed with those games. Wasn't impressed with those games. Didn't want Detroit. Wasn't necessarily impressed with those games. Didn't want Boston. Didn't want that game. Didn't want Minnesota. Didn't want Washington. Didn't really want that game. Didn't want Chicago. And I might take some LA. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 teams for you to play with tonight. Come down in here. 5, 3 uniques. Let's see how that switches things up. Of course, if I wanted a different goalie, I'd have to go manually lock him in. It still likes Garrett Sparks. I'm unchecking him from my player pool because it's not realistic tonight. I'm going to rerun it. Tampa Bay, Vegas. So not quite full stacking, but it likes Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Vegas. And this will, so do I. That's why I picked those teams, right? So we're looking at this type of scenario. The other thing that we can do is we can use a couple of different stacking ventures. I can double stack my teams. I can run a 3x3. I can run a 4x4. I can take Tampa Bay. I can add another team. Columbus. They weren't in my pool. Who was? Calgary. I can come over here and I can take Toronto. Where's Arizona? Arizona. Add another team. Where's those LA Kings? So now I've got a couple of my GPP offenses. If I want them only in about 20% of my lineups, I can set that exposure. And then I can leave the rest of it over here on Toronto, say 60%. And I want Tampa at 50 and I want Calgary at 50. And sure, I left a team out or so. If I want to use all the players, I can do that. If I want to select just specific players, say I wanted Braden Point. I know he's not on my list. But let's say that I wanted to use just Point, Kucherov, Hedman, Tyler Johnson, Ryan McDonough, Sergachev for value. Okay, now these are the only Tampa guys I'm going to see in these stacks when I run them. I can do this for every team. I can set my stack exposures, and now I should have Toronto, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Toronto, Vegas, a little one-off, Tampa, Arizona. See if I can find an Arizona stack in here somewhere. There's an Arizona stack. There's an LA stack right below it. Another Arizona stack. But in the first stacks, I should see a lot of Tampa Bay and a lot of Calgary. And when I find Tampa Bay, it should be only the names I pick. Point, Kucherov, McDonough, right? Point, Kucherov. Ooh, only a twofer there. Because it went 1, 2, 3 Toronto and 1, 2, 3 Calgary. How about that? These are just different ways to play with these games. You want to start winning some tournaments, get in here, let the machine do the work for you. Rely on the projections. You can pick your team and you can boost things that you want. You can tweak and play around with things. If I want to mess with somebody's point, I like Kucherov, but I like him at 19 points tonight. That's fine. I can change his projection. He'll start pulling in more often. I can turn around and I can limit my exposures to nobody in more than half of my lineups. Bam, they all go to 50%. If I want to make that rule for Kucherov, let him into 75%, I can do that. If I see Austin Matthews and say, you know what, I'd like to see Austin Matthews in at least 20% of my lineups, but no more than 50% of my lineups. And his projection, I like it at 18. Bam. Now I can rerun these numbers, and I can spend hours getting my player pool exactly how I want it, and then let it optimize the lineups by salary for me. This is where the industry is going, and this is why we've got it shown in NHL. We've got all of these sports offered for you. And over on DraftKings, we've got these other sports. That's just what the DFS Army's doing for you. Okay? I wanted to show you that little demo too. That kind of was impromptu. Either way, we're running up on 25, 27 minutes. Hopefully you saw a little bit of the slate. You saw a way to use the tools to get some jobs done. You probably didn't get a ton of information on buyers or sellers to narrow down your own player pool, but you got to be a VIP if you want that type of information. So jump on inside today. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, trigger that 10% off discount. Come use our tools. Come get the coaching. Come get the explanation. You get the tools as a light member, but you don't get the explanation in how to use the tools because you don't get to communicate with the coaches. You need to be a full VIP for that. Click the link, hit like, hit subscribe down there at the bottom. This has been Thursday's Chop Talks. 3-game NBA slate is pretty worthless. We've got NFL stuff coming. You can see Showdown Smackdown just dropped. One of our members just retweeted that. I'm going to go retweet it myself so that you can have access to that. And hopefully we'll see you on the inside as a VIP where we get to talk an awful lot more. I talked for probably 3 hours yesterday with people getting guys started off on the right foot, brand new members. So join the wave. Jump in, dfsarmy.com. I'm Choppadong. This has been Chop Talk. We will see you guys Friday tomorrow.